Good morning. So, welcome to Chimrezik Institute. We will start this morning session with making a mandala offering as a token for requesting the teachings, and then Geshe will lead the way with refuge and bodhicitta. So, if you are familiar with that, you're welcome to join in, and if not, just kick back and relax. It's going to be all right. Sa shi toki jun shi me to ta ri ra li shi ni de gen ba di san ye shi do mi de o wa gi do gu na da shi la chu pa shu da
Guru Rana Mendala Gandiya Taya Sangi Chedan Tsojin Chonung La Chanchu Bardu Dami Kyabsunchi Dagi Chushi Jibon Dagi Ndolam Benji Sangi Ndubarashu Sangi Chedan Tsojin Chonung La Chanchu Bardu Dami Kyabsunchi Dagi Chushi Jibon Dagi Ndolam Benji Sangi Ndubarashu Sanji Chedan Tsoji Chonum La Chanchu Bardu Dan Gyabsun Dagi Chushi Jiban Dagi Roland Benshi Sanji Chubar Shu Kangi Tuzani Zoni Tawa Tamche Bambi Cheri Dami Chun Denzi Kwadam Chela Chansi Good morning everyone. 참 뒤에
ngara gashi dameche dirme
dim치는 양은저더니 대사님이 먼저 조지로디 로주님이었어. 이리was.
So, good morning, everyone. On the Sunday morning teachings, we've been looking at a text that is called Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun.
대신상 다 디기다 거든 디거든님보다디 당시 디기치트 로 디기치트 대와 타르투바 내가 대와 잠마이바 단 타르투기 대와 세지 순거다 타르투기 대와 아니 세메 시위기 대와 디순고도 쓰라
Temeshi.
세워매봐
Semomel.
시위 대와
And we've been looking at this text, Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun, with a certain purpose. Our purpose is happiness and well-being. Not occasional or temporary happiness and well-being, but final, long-term. Ones in which happiness and well-being in which there is no harm. We can call it the well-being of serenity, in which there is no harm, there is no injury, long-lasting happiness and well-being.
Tere denza da di 점된 디기 디순고라 다 디기 탑 gyudda masuna di karires laundi ani nguyo netsu changden da changden gi lamla tene ani tsewa mewa shivi dewa sayadi yungure songra darwa.
And so looking at how the Buddha, the Bhagavan, spoke of the way to accomplish happiness and well-being, the method for that, he said that the way to do that is to develop causes that are in line with reality, which means that to follow a path that is based on honesty and truthfulness, and thereby reaching a state in which there is no harm. It is a state of peace, state of serenity.
Tirda da tsewa mewa sayadi tsewa mewa yongyala ya ani changden le dengu do sira chang denpa denjang chini rogo do sayadi da nganzu semla ya nga changbu yin samsung roji mengen jida pishi yo marwa sirwa ina ya changbu ngoni changnegi changbu yongyala ya nguyo netsula ya piki ngubi neluk sengedili ya shi juye chini tini didan samlo nyingbo di tumbi toni da ani samlo dani rotuwa ina da changden ngoni di chagdo sirwa.
And so an attitude of non-harm or non-violence paired up with an attitude of honesty and truthfulness. So the Buddha spoke of having to develop this path of non-violence, which is based on reality, based on honesty, based on truthfulness. And we often have that idea that I'm being honest, I'm being sincere in this situation. And we might think that we are honest and sincere, but it's not enough to do that. We also have to make sure that whatever we do in a sincere way, sincere or honest ways, we think it has to be based on reality. It has to be based on honesty, truthfulness, and reality. That is the way of developing a non-violent approach.
Terda bigige ta nguyo sadi ya nguyo dile ya rimba mangbo chini yungorda ro chara mangbo chini. Tenza nguyo ge bigi ta chik tsawa ro de kharesendi yotsulti ro nganzu samal da ani randa shen samalo ta nganzu yobares ro yobadi ani nganzu ta nyongyo chogorda yena ya yobadi yotsul khandajik tol yores laundi. 다들이 요술디 치마 진신디 딱 우연 내수 탈두고도 요술들이스라 다 요술 무 마심 바르도 아니 요술 우연 내수든 tum비기 자와지 제투고 매바디 야자자리 된서 요술디 신고도스 다 요술디 뎀빈네루디 디레스라 다 요술디 아니 원이 지 라지 트바이나 되니 시니당 원이 탄댕길람 세워메빌람 세티 로투야디 용구요사레스.
And so we identify, recognize how things exist, what reality is. And reality has different levels. There are coarse levels to reality and subtle levels of reality. So for example, when we look at what exists in reality, I exist, or we exist, and also others exist. And we know that based upon our personal experience. But then the question is, how do we exist? What is that mode of reality? So that also has different levels. And when we look at the most final way that we exist, we can recognize that our way of behaving, our way of acting doesn't comply or doesn't agree with the way that we and others exist on a final level. And so if we develop an understanding of the way that we exist, then truly we can develop a path of non-harmfulness. We can act in a way that is honest and truthful if we understand this final way of existence.
Terda linza da yotsug tolaya da pi da mi namju yongin soge da ani cheba chene sheon digita deni shetan da mandachi da ko karsa chamu shuji 로 간내 휴진자 아니 다 기병원부 쪽에 미리게 삼설서르치 로 이네단 아니 요츠 타투버디 당 웅송드 아니 시니 다 셴르 땡인디 아니 템바샤게미니 공다 차거레스라.
And so when we analyze the way that things exist, there are different scholars that have arisen throughout the time, throughout the generations, providing ways of analyzing existence, the way that things exist in a really smart way. So there are many explanations that were given based on this scrutiny or analysis of the way that things exist, and they get to very profound points and very subtle points. And that is based on the teachings that the Buddha Shakyamuni gave. This is the source for this mode of analysis of reality.
데다다르마와 속 송디게 다 카시기 다 요츠디 샤마시디 다 탄닝 비추세디 저니는 문도스 그라 탄닝 비추디 킬 문도스다 그라 딘자 아니 탄닝들 주범 문도스 라온디 다 탄니비 세마세디야 아니 로바레샤스 그라 딘자다 간지 아니 타투오나 가야 문도스 가야 문도스다 가야 메바디 톨이야 샘트 직샤투바나 되니 다 아니 상기게 도세 디딜 소바다 아니 따두 문저 마무 쇼치 레이어레스로 넘버 상기 위숑을야.
And so when this mode of existence is analyzed by different scholars, those who come to the conclusion that we cannot posit any conventionality as an existent phenomena. Nothing whatsoever exists. Conventional valid cognition is wrong. They said that actually when you look at reality, the conclusion that you come to is that nothing whatsoever exists. And this is what you need to place your mind on in order to attain the state of Buddhahood. So we disagree with that, but still Geshe is bringing up this point in order to say that those teachings are quite subtle, and there are scholars that have arisen throughout time that have analyzed the teachings of the Buddha and have drawn some conclusions.
데다 마무쇼메다 좀된디 카르송스한데 요츠디 네버 마레스 요레스로 탄인디 요레스 간스난 간수 소소수 여바데 소수 뇽이 죽으라라 아니지 야부 쩌나 아니 대화 연구 여바 야부 마저나 동화 연구 여바 동화 연구디 소수 뇽이 죽으다서 딘지기 무슨 투데들에 뇽은 지금도스 당간수 요요레스 요츠디 카르레스 라운디 텐니 트바레스 셴라 텐니 트바 텐니 딱섬 레마도 마뎀바 마타바 유코랑원의 라운드 트바직 간수 킬 문도스.
And so how do things exist if we look at the summation of this point? How do things exist? Well, conventionally they exist. We have an experience, we do experience phenomena. So we can posit the existence of phenomena based upon our own experience. In that if something good, positive occurs, we experience happiness and well-being. If something negative occurs, we experience suffering or pain. So if we negate that mode of existence in saying that none of it exists, that would be contradicted by our own personal experience. So we don't negate completely the existence of phenomena. What we negate is independent existence. So things exist when we look at the way that phenomena exist, that things exist. They exist independence upon others. They're merely imputed independence upon others. Nothing whatsoever exists without depending on other phenomena. Nothing whatsoever exists without relating to other phenomena.
데르데자 율그넬루디 아니 텐니 트바 아니 딱sam고 톤이 트바 임발라야 mataba matemba rawang de chuba tabu chilaya zini ani tal samtan rowaina nyokta chagadus ro matyoba matyoba ani lega chebanda nyokta chagadus tadi ngone ro tadi ngone chagros ro.
And so really things are established. Phenomena exist only through depending upon others. They are merely imputed in dependence upon others. And yet we grasp at phenomena to exist in a different way. And when we grasp at phenomena to exist as if they are not merely imputed, as if phenomena are not dependent upon others, we experience problems. And really, when we look at the problems and difficulties that we experience in our daily life, we can see how our perception of whatever situation we encounter is that things exist independently, not as being merely imputed, but independently.
Tera pena nganzu mitsi ketan di mimang chia pigi ta kim tab soni drogoras tara kim sengi di satsang sengi di ani pigi ta ni zomni ni tsoni chubgoya jira da ni tsoni chubgoya di chik le ya ani toba da chik le ya ani sosem da kuzi da chamba mena 카토로야 jira da ra 토로야 jira nyota ta 카토나 ta 아니 만지 버려 다 딘디지 차고 알아서 찌기찌래야 구지단 툴럼다 구십다 장바 여봐야나 아니 탈큐야지 탈큐야 돼야지 아니 시대징한 탈큐야지 야지야다 연구를 와서
And so when we'll investigate this mode of dependency, we consider, for example, in our life, when we look at our life, then most people in our society live in the framework of families, households, relationships. So when you have a relationship going on, when you have a partner, then two people living in a relationship, they depend upon each other. And without having patience, without being respectful, without having a sense of care for one another, problems arise. And we know that. We can see, we know that in order to have good relationship, then there needs to be patience, consideration, respect, care for one another. That illustrates relationships of dependency.
들린자 뜨는 트브세야디다 로 뜨는 트바디 아니 최탐지 요소도 뜨는 트바인자 디 nenga 디치 신투바이나 데니 곧 내루던 tum비게 아니 삼로지 땅야 아니 고향 용야지 송구여반 용구여반사 아니 드링안주 쉬야디 내룩 참목 된티 차그도스.
And so when we understand that phenomena are related, that related upon others, if we understand that, we can think of a certain situation that we encounter and develop an approach that is more spacious. Our mind will be made more spacious and calm, or it is, when dealing with a certain situation. And this is what we have been discussing in relation to the current section of mind training, like the rays of the sun. So we're going to pick up from the point that we left off in the previous session and continue with looking at this analysis of reality.
들다 디 송디 다 야체무슈 준마 송구도스라 이네 당한 디치다니 다 고마다이네 간신디는 마치 로그인스.
So we're going to pick up from the previous point. Now, this section of the text now explains it in a very extensive way, and it's difficult to pick up each point individually and scrutinize it. So Geshe will read through a few sections and then give a brief overview.
다드니 병하라방가식 세디 병하라방가식 다미 집이 매규다 타두집이 리시지 제주든 제진 대단 타두집이 리시지 트바 디응을 고르츠바 디자자는 편주는 제니 타두집이 리시지 자자요나 디제주 요구 디요나 덴바 여보 손니 가식 타두집이 리시지 매지 마시 디요나 자요 가자 로번 교디 That the on the Rishi Jesu Yogu, the on the Demba Yogu, which she says,
Do you know what page is it in the text? 113. So for those of you who have the book, it's in page 113. So it says some earlier Tibetan masters asserted that the non-existent self, referred to in the Buddhist seal, all phenomena are selfless, can bear analysis by an analytical awareness examining the ultimate mode of being, which means the same as to say that it is established by that analytical awareness, that it holds its own in the face of that analytical awareness, and that it is the object of apprehension of that analytical awareness. If something is the object of apprehension of an analytical awareness examining the ultimate, it must necessarily be able to bear analysis. If it were so, they assumed, it would have to be truly existent. Therefore, some said that it is not an object of an awareness analyzing the ultimate, because if it were, there would be no basic object of negation.
Dear that the Pung Haraba sage, Pung Harabadan Chiraba sage, Jig Chigurs, that the kinds of number Sanji, Jomden the Chudi, Ani Jagani Pearl Tarjavach, Jagani Pearl Tarondi, the Turubgi Hashi Tony, any Toma di Zu Kenji Shiotso, Ani Kenji Shiotso Pearl Pevni, Ani Pearl Sanji Temple Zu Shavach, Ani Kenji Shiotsoda, Levin Pemanjoni, Ani Pearl Dendishuni, Ani Pearl Sanji Temple Zu. The Kenji Shiotsogi Kablaya Zudi, Sanji Chug, Tadugunang, Tadu Zudi, the Umarangibi Tawa Suraji, Manja Sunga Konran, Umarangibi Tawa Navy, the Sur Sonchini, Pevdozi, Dinani, Tajik, Semi Shonla Sobadi, Ani Zo Chetin, Tinti Sonya Sares. The Chisutni, Ani Levin Kamalashila Pevche. 아니 공부를 약속을 소비다 따와 트마메바 산지 좀 된디기 따와 트마메바 디다 아니 수치 안 다디 진주 드니 제단 장관람 정거 첨부 다 로투게스 공래 공다 별이야 아니 뱀니 아니 베 닥터 쇼진 제인자 다디 공기 아니 개방감이기 송샤기 릭 마무질이야다 나레비 따와서 따와 만들어지 직송군도 쓰라.
So we started this section with referring to some earlier Tibetan masters, this statement. So thinking briefly of the evolution of Buddhism in Tibet. So Buddhism made its way from India to Tibet. So there were earlier scholars that were involved in the operation of the spreading or the taking root of Buddhism in Tibet, and there were later scholars. So one of the earlier masters that have traveled from India to Tibet was a scholar that is called Shantarakshita. So Shantarakshita, together with another one, Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, established Buddhism in Tibet. So there were, you can say, earlier masters. Now, Shantarakshita particularly was a master that mainly pertained to a philosophical view that was held by an Indian Buddhist school of thought that is called the Madhyamika Svatantrika, or Middle Way Autonomy School. He also brought along one of the main systems of valid cognition, the system of Pramana Vartika. So then at some point after that came Kamalashila, another Indian master that had traveled from India to Tibet. And Kamalashila was a follower of an Indian master, Nagarjuna, who also had students, his spiritual children. And they held stainless views, the final views expressed by the Buddha. So Kamalashila brought those views along with him to Tibet. Then a few hundred years after that, arose a great Tibetan master, the great Tsongkhapa. He arose to prominence about 600 years ago. And he conducted an extensive research of different philosophical views held by scholars, Indian scholars and Tibetan scholars. And those are some of the determinations that are made here with respect to earlier masters and latter masters.
데리다 가시 전점 덴바 트바 인디스 리시 지제즈 임비체디 디자자 임비체 셰마오
Right, so then it says, reading through that section, if something is an object of apprehension, of an analytical awareness examining the ultimate, they say, it must necessarily be able to bear analysis. If that were so, they assumed, it would have to be truly existent.
데리다 데 전점 덴바스 전점 덴바스 라운디 칼라워스나 당한주기 비 낭술직당 아니 네술기 지키 최간다 증인바이네야 낭술직당 네술직체네 아니 차니 체기어스 된자 아니 네술대 네술디 차들이야 전점 댐바세고레스 한수기 차들이야 군접 댐바세고레스
And so there are a few terms that are used in these sections. For example, something having to be truly existent. So this section refers to how phenomena appear to us and how they exist in an actual sense. So with respect to everything that exists, we can say that there is a mode of existence and then the mode of appearance. Something exists in a particular way, and yet it appears in another way. So the mode of appearance, that pertains to what we call conventional truths.
일단 내술디 카레스라운디 아니 비기 랑 낭술이야 라왕기 트바다오지 난게 여러서라 라왕기 트바다오 디 예메 살니 라왕기 아니 트바 많이 봐 아니 마트 비차들이야 아니 전점 댐바세 거레스 단데디가 전점 댐바세 디레스.
And so phenomena appear to us in a particular way. The mode of appearance is pertaining to a level of reality or truth that is called conventional truth. So phenomena appear to us as if they exist from their own side. This is the mode of existence. They appear to us as if they exist from their own side. And yet, if we investigate these phenomena, we find that there is no such mode of existence. They cannot be found as existing from their own side. They cannot be found as if they are established in and of themselves. This is a level of truth that is called ultimate truth. So the phenomena appear to us as if they exist from their own side, but the non-existence from the own side is their actual way of being. This is an ultimate truth.
Penanganzu dus deondi ra nganzu chig dombal tenta ma deondi nganzu ta deyobadi nguyuros ra ta ani ngaran del deyu sambi kabdile ya deju ngaran di pigi ani chig zewaina ra suzugi ani ludan chig ani semdan ani ngala sobi tolaya chig zewaina ani chashin di nga resha samyagi ngonza tuyachi ta yungu yomares the di tindi song down di and de be rani di zao ni ni mani bach ro sam jasan ding aresha somsom ji zao ni ni ju meba tilya ta ni ju meba di nguyo resta su kang ni meba nguyo res ni ju meba nguyo inza te demba denjang res ta te demba denjang res.
So just to illustrate that, we all sit here and we see each other, right? So, for example, we sit here and you guys are sitting over there. We can look at each other and think to ourselves that I'm being here, I'm sitting here on this seat, and we have a certain apprehension of ourselves. So while there is an apprehension of ourselves as of me sitting here on this seat, being here in this position, when we try to look for I or me and being able to single out, to isolate the actual one, the real one, we cannot find it, in a sense that we, for example, each and every one of us, we have a body, we have a mind, there's I or me. So when we think of the sense of self that arises in our mind, when we think I am sitting here now, and when we think, where is I or me? Can I find I or me within the body? Can I find I or me within my mind? Is there any part of them that I can point it and says that this is I or me within the makeup of my body and mind? There's nothing that we can find that is the real I within any of them. And this is the way that you can say the final way that we exist, in that we, if we look for I or me within the makeup of body and mind, it cannot be found.
There the dindigi nelu segora da dindigi nelu delaya ane sem teniro ane temba shasana mandu sem tenidu sing drotu waina ane tanganzu namju chi chagdang rigdi ane gacha jatan bata nyon roya kanzam jila bedi ane pigi kang duya ni jumeba ti pigi ane in la pa tim roya chik ro ta chagdang lo de nyon roya na ane chagdang la dembi ge ane tsewi chawa samalo ro nganzu tsewi chawa kanda jimba na ya ane chagdang la den yungu das ro tenza chagdang nyon roya na ane tsewa chiya de nyon roya res tsewa chiya de nyon roya na ane shidile go res ta di ro sanji bi ta zo de deleshas ta ni na ro.
And this is this mode of reality, right? So when we attain the mind to it, we can see that when we look for anything, when we look for a self, for example, with the body and mind, we cannot find it. And so we attain the mind to that level of reality. We sustain mindfulness with respect to it. And as we do it, types of awarenesses, which are disturbing emotions, anger and attachment and so forth, they reduce, they abate, in that they see that when we're looking for the objects of these afflictive states of mind, we cannot find them. We cannot find them through such mode of analysis. So this is a way of saying that they dissolve into, so anger and attachment and so forth, they dissolve into the sphere of non-findability. And so anger and attachment can be reduced through that process. And if we reduce anger and attachment, then harmful activities will also abate. They will be reduced. And through that, we will attain a state of peacefulness and well-being.
Tilda ram penanganzo ta nyamnyong rojira danganzo ani pigi pasho pigi yukorang tingne pe ani yoba chikta yukorang tingne pe ani zeshen yidong wanchi yukorang tingne pe ani manzeba dugja shuchi tindri ji sanglo tangsa jela ya ani chagdang lo di shuchi rogdas danganzo ro chagdang lo katsu shuchi wa di tsuki ani be magi lolo chi mado 아니 박배부지 연구요 말이스 메탁처리스 딘자 가두 성도 땅이야 비기 아니 상황도 매봐 그봐 땐니 추수고 털어야 로지 때토바나 아니 샘을 시디세티 샘 박배부진 마치 대바이는 양 로지 아 자주 동바이네로 조친부 야시자다면 연구여서 그래서 되면은 아니 배 아니 샘디 술진이야 지 꺄대주로 지 데스지 소 대와지다 연구되느냐 디 디야 지 아니 샘디야 지 간지 샘디야 아니 대바 마캉교 지간라 사고서 그래서 착단 레스비젤라 아니 대바 마캉이 아니 소와도 숙천부 용대지 연구해서 그래서
And we can assess that through our own personal experience. In that, first of all, we look at the way that things appear to our mind. Things appear to our mind as if they exist objectively. They're out there. They exist as they are objectively. And so when something appears to our mind as if it is objectively positive or objectively negative, our mind reacts to that in a very specific way. Strong anger, strong attachment arise when we objectify phenomena as if they exist out there objectively. So our mind reacts to that. And the way that the mind reacts to that is in becoming uncomfortable or unwell, unhappy. Our mind cannot really dwell in a peaceful or an easy sense when there is a strong apprehension of phenomena as if they exist objectively out there as being positive, negative, and so forth. And so we develop an insight into the way that phenomena exist in an actual sense. We see that phenomena do not exist in that objective, independent way, but they exist independent upon others. And through that, our mind is made more at ease, to the point in which even simple things, like you can say that even as so far as just having a cup of tea will taste better if we do that with an apprehension of phenomena not existing objectively. So long as we do objectify phenomena as if they exist objectively out there, positive, negative, and so forth, there'll always be something that our mind will be unhappy with, unsatisfied with. So this anger, attachment, and so forth that arise in our mind in relation to the apprehension of objectively existing phenomena means that our mind is made unsatisfied. There's always something that is not quite right when we perceive things as if they exist objectively out there.
배는 자세 좀 쉬어라 배지 샤여라서 미지기 딱 미진 걸어야 죽바 쉬어야나 때 미디 배나타 그런 걸 죽바 쉬어야 뭐여라 다 임바이나야 아니 죽바 쉬사 미디기 그 나를 죽바 쉬소 상야지 그 나를 죽바 쉬소 삼나 아니 long mang lan reji yungda da yungura rara.
An Indian master called Shantideva explained that, illustrated that in a text that is called Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, in which in one of the verses, one of the sections in the text, Shantideva presents a certain scenario. And it says that, suppose that someone whacks you with a stick in the head, right? So they're whacking you with a stick and you examine your reaction to that situation. So there's a strong sense of me that arises in that situation. You think that that person have whacked me.
어디다 되니 다 심주 시온디 그 계란라야 주버 칸드 슈송스 라 근데 팀도 에듀케이션 그 계란라야 주버 칸드 슈송스 그게 락바기 주버디 계란 골라야 툭소마도 아니 그 계란라야 가올라 슈송스 계란 고든 계란 마르와스 라 주버디 코 마르와스 주버디 중에 락바디 코 마르와스 근데 그 계란라야 주버 칸드 슈송스 지금 라바이나 내가 담보다 배지 로를 마숑아들이 용도 거라 니버들이야 아니 렘 메교 소리지 베너로 렘 메교 소리 착사로서
And so when Shantideva presents that discussion analysis of this scenario, when someone is whacking you in the head with a stick, and that strong sense of self arises in thinking that that person whacked me with a stick, then Shantideva says, hold off. Well, first of all, you experience pain because that person was wielding a stick and the stick hit you in the head. So identify the sense of self that arises in that scenario. Is your head yourself? Do you think that I am my head? So that's one point. Second point is that the actual thing that has hit you in the head and caused you pain is the stick. But are you getting angry with the stick for causing you pain? Or are you getting angry at the person wielding that stick? So the stick is the thing that is causing you pain, and yet you get angry with another person holding that stick. So Shantideva presents this mode of analysis investigation, trying to pin down what is the actual thing that is causing you pain, and what are you getting angry with? And this mode of analysis seems to be a little bit baffling or confusing in the beginning, but the point that Shantideva is getting at is that if you look at a situation like that and you're trying to find something that objectively exists and pin it down in this way, you're not going to be able to find it.
데드도 시온디게 베기 락발이야 주발레야디 콜롱지키 토니다 랭고그라스다 더 콜롱디 아니 베기 딸 락바드 뎀비 칸사디 샘라야 아니 참바 요초그레 제바 요초그레 데차 요초그레 콘로 요초그레 와서라 다 참비 콘라니 주발레야디 빈니뇨로 와서라 다 콩트 콘라니 다 죽바디 심거라다 진짜 아니 디 콩로 디 균댕 간자단 콩로 님보디 로가라 왔다 지단 로가라다 진짜 콩트 코넬라니 죽발레 죽바디 아니 피기게 미파쇼면 골레 테버레 마도 다 미파쇼 몰라야 고등 원에서는 미디 마라와 진짜 다 미들레야 테메요로지 진짜 두 시코라 겨원디게 아니 콘트로 균댕기 라바드 뎀비 칸사 델야 자원이는 콘트로 사사 메교로지 랑고에 뉴스 상담하나 콘트로 샤완디 교진이 아니 콘트로 왕기 라베 라야 규벌 레버레 마도 메디 요라야 잠반도 니지도 제와도 셰럼도 삼성지 딘디기 아니 상로지 코르토바나 간지 소수 gyolaya golaya nasaji tangadayana semlaya 콩조 말레바식 아니 탑시 지야시 야담부터 떼는 것도 왔어요.
And so the person that is whacking you with a stick is likely to be doing that with a certain motivation. So they're holding a stick in their hand and they have a certain motivation that you're using it in whacking you in the head, on your head. And so when you investigate the person holding that stick and investigate what is the type of motivation that they have with whacking you on your head, well, the person is likely to have different emotions in the mind stream in general. So they can have love, they can have attachment, they can have anger. And when they're attacking you in this way, it is likely that they're not doing that motivated by attachment. It is likely that there are few cases in which someone will attack you with attachment. It is likely that they're motivated by anger. So the person now is experiencing anger in the mind stream, and through that motivation, they're wielding a stick and attacking you. So the person that is attacking you in this way also has other emotions, other states of mind that operate in the mind stream. They'll also have love, they also have attachment, they also have a sense of care for others. But in that particular situation, they are controlled by anger. So it's not that a person is attacking you in having a sense of independence. Currently, in that scenario, they are controlled by anger. And so why are you getting angry at a person that has no control? For the control is within the hand of anger. Whereas if anger was not present, they would not have attacked you. So then Shantideva is presenting this mode of analysis and investigation in order to illustrate that in many different cases, we have an emotional reaction to situations, we get angry and so forth. But when we investigate the person that is being harmed, which is we ourselves, and the different parts in our body that feel pain, like for example, the head, and we, though we identify with our head, we see that I am not my head, I cannot find myself within the head. And also when we analyze the person that is attacking you and what is the actual thing that causing you pain, the stick versus the person holding that stick versus what is motivating that person, then we get a sense that the way that we objectify the situation, tending to think that, or to apprehend things as if they exist objectively out there, is not correct. And so this mode of analysis investigation is a way of reducing anger, pacifying anger.
Tera dindigi kanji mijigi susun golaya gyuba shuba inaya susu sem mantu yagi tabshi chiyadi tadrim di tonda chematuna ani shamba da kabu shujrasa kedzi kontro di kamatu bayna kari yungresla ani susu chanden mayimbi lamla droyagi ani lamla longyagi lobby lamla longyagi ta nyanga pe chenbu yorasara kongju shawande kyobayna ani ta nyanga dilegores pena su golaya gyuba shuni ani kongju shu sen pa pedi ani tse maybe gyuba pa shubayna ani me pa sho megi so troyagi nyanga yorasara ta di susu golaya gyuba kebal teni me pa sho me so la never tambayana di ani di ta chande mayimbi lamcha gores ro ani susulaya nasa dis tawa digi ani mission ki solaya never tambayana di topdan yo mares ro topdan mejochi kansana nganzu gi mi ta dro mi rentang che shu di sotres ro nganzu le sol le rentang che ji zawni yo mares nganzu kare bezon che di so ki che jihoras ro so ki chedo ani 균을 lonjole 당고는 당고그리 아니 까도 gyag고는 gyag고거라서 다 아니 비 소수기 내가 강아제다 아니 지금 나사데즈기 체도 아니 미신기 솔라야 포도 담아는 디 아니 잔된 싸우는 차고 말했어 더 좀 되고 뭐 디레스로
So in short, what we're attempting to do is to react to a situation with a mind that is undisturbed. So someone is hitting us, for example, on the head, we feel pain, but we try to employ methods for making the mind remain undisturbed. And if we don't use such methods, can there be other methods that would work? It would be difficult to think that there could be other methods for arresting anger. So we want to arrest anger because otherwise we will react to a situation in a way that is not honest, not truthful. We will follow a path that is dishonest or untruthful, a wrong path. And this is very dangerous to us. If we get angry, for example, in a scenario like that, we could retaliate in a way that would put the life of others in danger. So someone, let's say, is whacking you on the head with a stick, and you retaliate even to the point where you're on the verge of taking the life of the other person, killing them. So this mode of behavior is not in line with reality. It is not truthful. It is not honest, because for us, you can say that the thing that we value the most is our own life. And it is not right, therefore, to damage, to harm the life of others. This is the thing that we value the most, our life. Living beings value most their life. And we work hard in doing different activities in order to support our life. So we accumulate money, wealth, resources, or what have you, in order to support our life. And so when we experience problems, when we experience pain, if we retaliate to those problems with damaging the life of others, this is a mode of behavior that is completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
Jane? So if you allow someone to kill you, hopefully that's not going to happen, at least not today. So if you allow someone to kill you, are you not kind of causing them to accumulate a nasty karma of killing you? And the kesi shengi Quran sok trubaina. Ani ta dishas di la kageche yo mares de nesano tawaina. Ta paro po midi le subchen dikpat subchen sagirwa. Chizan neso di yang Tokyo shiochi yorwa. Chizan kake machena yagarabes. Chiwa dende ingire.
속 촉서나 제국선은 제스키어레스.
그래서 속 제답체바이나? 코란은 너버치 제답체바이나.
네버 제대로 제바이나 까야가 톱단요레스. 까야가 톱단요레스. 인지미 까와라 인지미 파쇼면 속 제고에스 기어 말아왔어.
Well, of course, when someone is attacking you or doing something that is damaging, you need to try to prevent that, to stop that. We're not saying that we're remaining now, that we're going to become inactive and not do anything about a certain attack. So of course, we need to try to prevent that attack. We have the right to do that, but not at the cost of the life of others. This is the point that Geshe is making, is that we can respond to situations, but not through killing others.
랑이 속 쇼드스를 싸면 파쇼면 속 제샤와나 장부차 마스마스라.
So for example, this way of thinking, the person is going to kill me, and therefore I need to kill them first. This way of thinking is not honest. So what about euthanasia, for example? Dila tanda lumpa kashila Austria nanshin nade kashila yan dila euthanasia se dila mi natsa tsabchenbochi nawaina gengochi chawaina so tabgyo wadene ji chawaina ani so ranshi gyache du mengala drone kapchi gyache re den dabuchi mensa re chi tabden dabuchi problem sugirwa chezen data la salon tawaina kesi member chi na chi ropa chi na Kavgyaro jes lawaina di roba chenten zo dikpa sagreve dikpa subchen sagreve sochuve leden do chi chagreves.
다지당 래 레람 용스 조발야 콜롱당 아니 조바 무시다 죽라 소바 아니 마무 창고거레스 라 창고거레스 디질라다.
So first off, when we look at the whole presentation of karma, it consists of a presentation which presents a certain course of action, a path of action, in a very detailed way. So for a certain path of action to be complete, and thereby for the action to become very powerful, its components need to be completed. So there is the motivation, the attitude, the performance, the culmination. Each one of them also has their own details, and for an action to be fully completed, all of them need to be present.
다 봐서 마슈 지기베 나사가다 나사 착부 슈지기 나르치 아니 틴지 예비 갑둘라다 아니 레바디 gyawndita ninji kono ninji kon lang chosar was ro ta dine ta ninji kon lan da khab magya rangyab chajin khab gyab savejile ta digma song sambi ta ninji sambi gi ani ku dindije yongsar was ta tamashi savejile da ta ani ta yabu chonsong ga meba ta ji semnala ya tingin gyoba chikye deji yobaina an dindi kabdula ya ta ji sok chebi 레지사가 요레스 야자자도 요레스 임바이나야 삽체레베스나 삽제 마레스 가서는 디 아니 니버드 마쇼는 춘중 슈식 차야지 다 딘디 연구 요레스라.
And so we're trying to assess the course of action. So for example, in the case of euthanasia, someone, if you're involved in the medical profession, or if you're assisting someone that is asking to be euthanized, and your attitude is a compassionate attitude, the person is suffering greatly, and they have come to the decision that this is what they want to do. Then, as for example, as a doctor or someone that is part of this team, you think that, well, although in a certain context, this is not the right action to kill others, still they're motivated by compassion towards that person that is suffering greatly. Then when that person passes away, it's not that they think that's good, it's good that they died, but they think that the person has suffered greatly, and it's unfortunate that the life has ended with such great suffering. So there is also a sense of regret for a life that has ended in this way. So the action that is done, that is accumulated, is still an action of killing, but it's not as serious as if the action would have been if it was carried with a disturbing emotions, and also with a sense of rejoicing for the act that was done at the end. So there is an action of killing, but not as serious as it could have been otherwise.
대장안주기 랭게디 다 시지기 토니다 시샤진으로 시자시 송진다 랭게고로 왔으로 베낭안주다 아니 룰소를 지키 토니 베낭안주 랭게온디 남바상기 위치 송라야 아니 따드시 요르 디송진다 다 랭게고로 왔으로 디치온디게 안주 미iten라야 가츠시기 동할 뇽바인바이나야 아니 비간주 동할레 총아지마도 치아지 여버 찌기요 말레스 간주 피기다 지냐바나멜로 소바 베 아니 딘디기 용거다 디 아니 양규 동규레 미iten라야 동하디 용메시바치키 지고르다 디니 아니 수수 미텐디네 세편이 개와 치말이야 더 킬링이 짐바나 지 개와 약부질래야게 딩수 여바이나 텐드 세편나 경요 말레스 더 딩수 싸우는 메죠 남자단 직자단 딘디 베 코랑 토니 먼저 세표와이나 아니 개와 치마디 ngang pigi ta dunga seme ba nyonsa ge enle ke ge nyinga yobanza ani ta dini durgo do asra ta dini durgo gores karigando
아니 tambukaran shi kewa chenji dolas sabores and me 된다고 치 Kewachi Shogurway, and a Chidan Jenna.
then Nambi Kevin Hashit Shishan Shivora.
But then also we have to, when we ask questions about euthanasia and so forth, we also have to agree on a certain framework of this discussion. So for example, if you think about it from the point of view of the Buddhist presentations of past and future lives. So we pass away and then we go on and take another rebirth. And there are different types of rebirth that we could take in our next life. So there could be great suffering that we experience in this life as human beings, but still comparing to other miserable states of existence, we have it, we're doing quite well in that. If we are born in a hellish state of existence, suffering would be greater, hundreds of thousands of times greater than what is experienced now. And so when you think about it in relation to what is stated in the Buddhist tradition, upon our life ending as human being, if there's an absolute confidence that in our next rebirth, there's not going to be a miserable rebirth. It's going to be a happy state of rebirth. Well, there's no problem, no fault in that situation. But what if it is in doubt? Right, so here we're discussing that from the point of view of how the Buddhist tradition thinks of past and future lifetimes. So, when we're discussing that, then we have to ask ourselves, do I trust, do I believe in the existence of past and future lifetimes? And also, do I have absolute confidence that that person will not end up in a miserable state of existence in the next lifetime, in which suffering would be much greater? If I'm not absolutely sure about it or confident about it, it could be dangerous in that if a person dies with a great sense of fear, with a sense of anxiety present in the mind, it is likely that a person will end up in a miserable state of existence in the next lifetime, and that could be quite dangerous.
Sam the res the Sam Chuyak and Kalakao Bay or mother, the Sam Redos, and a Kana Nazadi Chasa res Lavina, and in middle Sim Shukiech, middle Sim Shuyovina, and it means Sanaya, Subula Panch, and Chujutonaya, Subula Panch. The Sam Shu the Mosan Chashavan, that can try and those. That Yamakashi, Dawakashi, Kerashidra Saris. Mus don't do it. Amji Lavan, met cup to Korabedi, and the Doma look dryer, Namgu law dryer, Tenepedi, and the Sosu never make you rich. And the jig bed, Gova Shidra, the one and tongue does there are.
So the greatest help that we can give to others in terms of their mental state of well-being, if we are trying to support others, then in terms of giving them protection or refuge in relation to the mind, one of the best things that we can do is to help people generate courage. When someone becomes sick, then helping them to develop courage in exploring the avenues of recovery. Often, if someone hears bad news about becoming sick and they're told that the predicament is pretty grim, a state of mind that is discouraged, that is distressed and so forth, escalates the physical deterioration. We can see that happens, right? So someone's face must be reacting with a great, they become aghast or really distressed about hearing about this predicament. And this loss of heart, loss of courage can exacerbate their physical well-being. We can see that. So then when we think of how is it that, in what way can we be supportive of others, then Geshe reckons that in any possible way, giving them courage, trying to protect their mind, that would be a good way to go about it.
Kanji and Chugi Lavjadi and lot of Jiach, Semlia, and 로드브지야치 간지 로 걔는 로고 첨부지 차와이나 나살 동린치 투그리 강갈 동린치 투그리 베즈널 동린치 투그리 안 디치디기 엔 춤지 가르치는 거 중에 텐토야지 이거다로 심지어 탐지기 텐섬 거스라니 아니 니마 장원디 베 아니 산진도야라 소딘 거라다 로 다케란 가연 준사 말다 케란 용사 말다 케란 시도서 슬라바나 아니 셈슈 차드 딘즈 가 두이네 양안 주기 아니 밀야 아니 셈슈 차야디 자원인다 지금도 학든디 아니 미지 냠타다 네바 냠타 틴딜야 셈슈 자원인 짜닝문도 더러 셈슈 자원은 교보교 시도야지 어딜 차고 그랬어 딘 공고요레스로.
So in short, what we want to provide others with is some courage, bravery, mind that it has a greater degree of fortitude. And so we might find different ways of doing that to encourage others to recover from sickness, to put effort into whatever they do in order to secure a certain result. Like, for example, from the point of view of the Mahayanas, we aspire to become Buddhas for the sake of all sentient beings, and we're training that day after day. So this is also a way of giving courage or providing courage for the sake of all sentient beings. Follow the state of enlightenment, follow the state to Buddhahood. And if this is drilled into the mind every day, one day after the next, and the courage, the fortitude in being able to attain the state of enlightenment and undergo the training for attaining the state of Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, the fortitude will grow better, stronger and stronger. Whereas if the advice or support that we give to others is that nothing will help now, you will quickly die and there would be no point in training in anything. And there's nothing much that you would be able to accomplish in the next while. Well, we're not going to provide others with courage. It would be actually discouraging. And if someone is already going through a pitiable situation, someone that is physically sick or physically disempowered or what have you, causing them to be more discouraged is likely to make the situation go from bad to worse. If you were dealing with a sick person, it might be actually conducive or contributing to the process of dying, gaining momentum, having a quick pace.
데르드베나 파번니디 주주 나눠야 아니 다점바 아니 당 고총 파번 고총 세디 남용한 시대 콩드니 아니 로춘중 갈야 김탑송 사상 부부부주 데니 코랑기베 다치 아니 조 냐세 와서레스 냐세치 아니 남스 벤저스 다 코란직 비게 아니 다르비 갑둘야 두 스칼레기야 된다 로야 첨부 차원디 로게주 사마선 레온디 되니 다 쇼지기 이만나시 내가 마투디 아니 비다 사상다 포투소소 야마제도 차원디 되니 다 코란 개장라 아니 다코 아니 곰바질레얀드로네 랍트총 삼니 두 시용디 당 인종도 제치 비기단 직된 김비기 초계단래야 아니 인종견 다코 자와치고 삼네야 존디 아니 좀된디 다코 아니 샤리볼로 소바 자위기 원시에 대바 로신섬시비 원시에 대바 이나야 타신 차와다 시투면야다 아니 두 시용디 크귤래야 지 타바차든기 게자 메바 공치엔 계란 잡도 좋나 도모타고문도 계란 줄래야 게 타바차도 게자문도 소 아니 카람피슈 샘슌 아니 람가스를 되는 좀 된데데 아니 좀 된데 계란 줄래야 타바차도 게자도 계란 잡도 좋는 디그두스 아니 게몽고 동반남니 땡텔이야 로지주 제스 아니 그 칼리기는 다줌 컴포터 로지틴디어스 사말로 녜서는 원에 레상우더스 간스나 샘기 로트 여바이나 아니 냠란 생이 로이 돈이 제저래도 마도 류탄 각라야 and then Java the your day near so low you don't change it as well.
And there are stories that are found in the Buddhist tradition that illustrate the importance of having to develop courage in our mind. So, for example, of the 16 Arhats, 16 elders, the 16 Arhats, one of them was called Kochung. That's at least his name in Tibetan. So it was said that in a younger stage of his life, he lived as a fisherman. He was a fisherman. He had a family, he had children. But as he was growing older and was no longer capable of making his living through fishing, he ended up being neglected by his family. So he reached the age of 80 or was 80 something, and he found himself in a situation where he was completely alone. He was neglected by his children, by his family, and he became quite discouraged and distressed about it. And he visited different temples. And at some point he met Shariputra, right? So those followers of the Buddha, those close disciples of the Buddha, one of them was Shariputra, then there was also Moggallana. And he was asking them about becoming a monk, for when he understood his situation, being in his 80s and no one was taking care of him, he thought that the only way for him to proceed, to move forward, would be to live cyclic existence. He developed renunciation. So Shariputra, being one of the close disciples of the Buddha, was already an advanced practitioner. He developed he developed clairvoyance. He had the ability to see other sentient beings' mind, but not in the most accurate and extensive way. So he already had some good capacities, but not fully developed. So Shariputra made that observation that this person, Kochung, that was already in his 80s, did not have roots of virtues that were compatible with liberation. And therefore, he said that he cannot really become a monk. It's not going to work out. So Kochung became even more distressed, more discouraged about it. And he was sitting by the road one day as the Buddha was passing by. And the Buddha had a conversation with him, and Kochung told him the whole story. And the Buddha said, no, actually, you do have roots of virtue that are compatible with liberation. You can become ordained. So he became ordained, became a fully ordained monk. And he was said to have attained the state of an arhat, even though he started kind of his life as a monk when he was already in his 80s. So Geshe said that to him, kind of stories like that illustrate this real point that courage is really important. If you have this courage, this fortitude in your mind, then you can accomplish things that you endeavor to do. And of course, some things require physical labor. You have to kind of labor hard with your body, with your speech, but it mainly has to do with the mind. If your mind is courageous, if it is determined, then you will be able to accomplish what you intend to.
Geshe tundam temba shasha mena tundam temba lo kuwa taban Geshe rishi tsimi shasha china zayo gasha loban gyuwi nyam sam rishi ki doba ne shasha mechin jeba ngun ne tangtong soba shasha jobe kundu ki tali cholo shimha was.
Yes, I wanted to read this section to the end of this paragraph. So it says, let's read from here. If that were so, they assumed it would have to be truly existent. Therefore, some said that it is not an object of an awareness analyzing the ultimate, because if it were, there would be no basic object of negation. Thus, if it were an object of an analytical examination, analytical awareness examining the ultimate, it would have to bear analysis. And if so, they say, it would have to be truly existent. Then it says, a number of Tibetan masters say that ultimate reality is truly existent because it is found by the awareness analyzing the ultimate, since it is the object of that awareness. Some say that if ultimate truth were not an object of awareness, it would be tantamount to underestimating ultimate truth. Thinking that if it were to become an object of valid awareness, there would be no basic object of negation, they assert, from the point of view of this awareness, that although it has no perceivable object from the perspective of inferential cognition, the assembly of appearance and vacuity can be still said to be a perceptible or perceivable object. Therefore, they say the extremes of overestimation and underestimation are avoided. Anyway, without we leave it here, this text here for now. So we will finish our session today with dedicating the merit that we have accrued together in thinking and listening to this section. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that is not arisen arise and grow, and may that which is arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. In the land encircled by Snow Mountain, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Jinrezi Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Savior of the Snowland teachings and transmigratory beings, who makes extremely clear the path that is unification of emptiness and compassion. To the Lotus Holder Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Finally, you uphold the Sibuya's moral way, who serves in the manifold bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majanath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels. Several of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day.